Alright, so we just arrived here in Liverpool and we're currently at the hotel and we're going to make our way to the concert in just a couple of minutes. So I'll show you what the stadium looks like, hopefully, if I can bring the camera in. Today we are actually in Liverpool going to do a 3-hour Beatles tour that takes you throughout the most famous landmarks like Strawberry Fields, Penny Lane, the house where Paul McCartney spent his whole childhood, areas where they played a lot of music like the Cavern Club, like the pub. We might just stop by there. Yesterday we actually went to go see Elton John last night, as I said, and it was a very great concert. All the music was absolutely amazing. Everybody was super excited, and I really enjoyed the concert. I'm really glad I went. But yeah, I'm getting ready to go to the tour, and I'll see you then.
Now, have you noticed with Liverpool, the architecture seems to be oversized and very grand. So it's an amazing place. It's got the largest pipe organ, definitely in Europe, but it could be the world. It's got over 10,000 pipes in the pipe organ. It's also got the heaviest set of working ringing bells at sea level in the world, called the Bodley bells, 53 tons in weight. See our Catholic cathedral in a minute. It's quite an interesting story, that, because I'm going to take you to a very famous birthplace soon. College. John Lennon came to study art here when he was 17. He met his future wife here as well, Cynthia Powell, and also a real cool guy called Stuart Sutcliffe. Sutcliffe basically was a fantastic artist, and he was John's friend at the college, and he wanted to be in John's band, which was called the Quarrymen, right? Enabled him to buy an instrument that he could join the band with, and what he actually bought was a little instrument called a Hofner President bass guitar. Now, so Stuart Sutcliffe joined the band, and originally the band had 5 members. So they had Peter Best on the drums and Stuart on the bass guitar. They went to Hamburg, Germany. Stuart met a girl called Astrid Kircher, and Astrid found a place for Stuart to study art with Eduardo Paolini in Hamburg. So the band came back to Liverpool, then went for its next tour, and that's when Astrid informed John that his best friend had just passed over, basically with a brain hemorrhage. The suitcases represent famous people who have either worked in Liverpool or were born in Liverpool. And in this case, come on, have a look at this one. So on the side there, it says Charles Dickens. Hofner press bass guitar there. Some of George Harrison's guitars. This one is John Lennon's Gibson acoustic guitar, J160E. And this one is the Hofner violin bass kit of Paul McCartney. But that is actually a moulding from his case.
So now the tour guide has brought us to the Philharmonic Dining Rooms, which was featured on an episode of Carpool Karaoke, which featured Paul McCartney on a Late Late Show with James Corden. It was seen by millions, and this happens to be the very same pub where Paul surprised fans with a set of songs.
Oxford Street Maternity Hospital, where our babies were born. And on the 3rd floor, room 12. So there you go, folks. So here's John's iconic glasses there. Now these plaques are awarded to you 20 years after your death, or if you and you become world famous, you know. So the English Heritage give you a plaque. Now they're normally a blue colour, but this is a black one, and this one signifies the fact that John died through very unfortunate circumstances or before their time, you know. On the skylight is "This Is Not Here," and that comes from John's favourite author. John used to read Lewis Carroll, Alice in Wonderland. Let's think of Through the Looking Glass. So you're here, but you're not here. You're a reflection in the glass. This is not here. And he also had a connection with Lewis Carroll in a song, I Am the Walrus, Coo Coo Ca-Choo. But Ringo was actually born here. He was born in Madrid. That's where Ringo Starr was actually born. And Ringo was born to his mother Elsie and his father Richard. And I said that Ringo was the oldest Beatle. So he was born on the 7th of July 19. But Elsie, she basically moved into this number 10 Admiral Grove when Ringo was 3.5 years old. And then when Ringo was 12 years old, she remarried. And she married a guy called Harry Greaves. And here's a little picture at the window there, and that's Harry, his stepfather. That's Ringo there, and here's his mother Elsie. And he loved Harry because Harry bought him his first drum kit and everything, you know. Ringo Starr had his 21st birthday in this house. That's where he signed it. The song. But let's go back to the name Penny Lane. Quite interesting. This land here belonged to one guy, and his name was James Penny. Now James Penny was a merchant shipping owner and obviously a very wealthy man, and he named this horse and carriage driveway originally because his mansion house is still on Penny Lane. Obviously Penny Lane from James Penny. Old, he comes to sing in the choir, and this is called St. Barnabas Church, and he sang in that choir for 3 years, right? So basically he took it very seriously. Now you see this building here, it's got a new glass roof on it, and it's going to be a bistro, as you can see, but that is actually a very old building. And here's a little picture I want to show you. So this is an older photograph, and it's got no glass roof, as you can see. But that is in fact the shelter in the middle of the roundabout. And Paul said about a pretty nurse selling poppies from a tray. She feels like she's in a play. She is anyway. Well, that is actually true, because each year we buy a red poppy for Remembrance Day and give a donation to the British Red Cross, you know. And a nurse used to stand on the corner there with a tray of poppies. And she was part of the local amateur dramatic society here, so she always starred in a play. And her name was Bethany Davidson. And here is a very early photograph of Bethany Davidson, right? Now, she knew John and Paul because she was the girlfriend and eventual wife to one of the quarrymen. Now, Paul also said about the banker never wore a mac in the pouring rain. Very strange. It's a Macintosh raincoat, you see. And basically, the banker didn't need a mac in the rain because he would park here and run in there. You see, this used to be Martin's Bank, but then it became a Barclays Bank, and now it's a doctor's surgery. So when it was raining, he literally didn't have time to put his mac on. He used to put it over his briefcase and walk straight in there at the door. It's a lovely doorway as well, come and have a look. So the banker used to just walk from there to there. That's why he never wore a mac. See? Now, Paul also said, Penny Lane is in my ears and in my eyes underneath blue suburban sky. So Penny Lane was in his ears, in his eyes, and even the smells from the cake shop and the fresh bread, you know. Now remember that Paul McCartney came here and he actually cut somebody's hair, and he had his hair cut. If you look here, you can see some photographs. Now, come in, folks. Let's go and have a look. Isn't that cool? There's some nice photographs on the wall there as well, getting the haircut. So that's how the shop front used to look. It wasn't called Tony Slavin's, it was called Mr. Bioletti's. And they got their hair cut here in 1964 when he came back from Australia. So the barber who had the pleasure of all the people he's had to know. Isn't that cool? This particular house here, number 24 Glyn Road, was of his mother Mary. Now here is a picture of young Paul and his younger brother Mike, and that's his lovely mother Mary. Now Mary was a very, very good trained nurse and midwife, so she could get free hospital accommodation to wherever she was needed after the war, because remember now that we had the baby boom after the war, you see. But unfortunately Mary then had to get a rental house because she then had the breast cancer. She gave her boys great advice, which was, if you have any problems in your life, forget about them, don't worry about it, you just let them be. Alright? Now Paul said he was in his flat in London in 1968 and he wasn't feeling very good. He was feeling a bit down because he knew that the Beatles were going to be finishing soon. He had a feeling that the Beatles were going to wind up. So his mother came back to him and said, now what have I told you, Paul? You just let it be. Mother Mary comes to me speaking words of wisdom, let it be. Now all the kids were listening to rock and roll, man. And what you need in a rock and roll band is you need one of them things, you see. So that's his first guitar. And as I say, James Corden and Paul McCartney came here in 2018. You're not feeling too good, Julia, and your boyfriend doesn't want John. So why don't you pass John over to me and George? So that's exactly what happened. So when John was 5.5 years old, he come to live here. Now here's a little picture of Auntie Mimi and Uncle George. This is in the garden. Now Uncle George was a decent provider, as you can see. Uncle George also had a passion for words and stories and poetry, so he kind of installed that into John, you know. But when John was 15 years old, unfortunately, his Uncle George had died suddenly, and that left Mimi and John in this house, and Mimi had to find a way to get some mortgage money, because obviously it was very expensive on the mortgage. So she opened up the rooms upstairs for students to come and stay. And then, here's where the significance for John is. This then become a Salvation Army children's orphanage. Kids with no mums and dads. Now, Auntie Mimi's garden is literally around the corner there, right? And every Sunday afternoon, John would hear boom, boom, the Salvation Army band. So John would jump over the wall, play in the woods here. The dinner bell would ring for the orphans, and he'd be in the line because he could try and get a free meal out of the deal, you know. And the Salvation Army officer would catch him. John, come here. Now, you're not supposed to be here, son. You're not an orphan. And if I see you here one more time, John, you're going to get hung. Now, what did he say in the song? And nothing to get hung about. You see? So basically, what we're talking about is a place where John could just chill out and dream a little bit.
Bus is the piano that John composed and recorded Imagine on. Most people think of a baby white grand piano that he plays in the music video. In reality, the acoustics in that room were horrible, and this was in his home studio.
So these are the original gates to Strawberry Fields, and you know what? They've been stolen about 5 times in their life, but they always seem to come back because they're very distinctive, you know. People have taken souvenirs here and there, you know, and the leaves. So the whole idea of the gates are the vine of the strawberry, the flower of the strawberry, the leaf of the strawberry, and the fruit, you see. And if you zoom up there, you see the flagpole. That's the highest point in Liverpool. So we've gone from sea level to the highest point. And John Lennon was a choir boy here. He used to sing in the choir. Now, there's a very famous photograph I want to show you. If you come down this way, folks. Being a choir boy here on the 6th of July 1957. Each year in Woolton Village we have what's known as the crowning of the Rose Queen Festival. So it's a good excuse for a summer party, you know. And on the 6th of July 1957, this is a famous photograph of the Quarrymen, John's first band, right? And that photograph was taken there. These graves didn't take it. That's where the photograph was taken. And they went down the village on that. So here's John Lennon there, and there are all his friends from school, Quarrybank High School. In fact, you'll notice that everything's made out of pink sandstone. And just round the back here is where the mining quarry for the pink sandstone came from. So basically, John Lennon got his name, the Quarrymen, from Quarrybank High School and the mining quarry here. Okay. Now, there was 2 guys in the audience here, and one guy had a guitar with him. And John Lennon had a harmonica in his top pocket. and he started playing the harmonica, right? But then he became quite emotional. In fact, he stopped playing because he suddenly realised that the connection with that harmonica, because that harmonica was given to him by this guy. Remember Uncle George?
Oh yeah.
Auntie Mimi's husband. And Uncle George is here. George Tungo Smith.
Oh,
Remember, he was very significant in John's life because he was acting as his father for 10 years. Can you see?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Now, go on a little journey with me, because it's quite an amusing story. Let's look at the lyrics in the song. Eleanor Rigby picks up the rice in the church where a wedding had been. She lives in a dream. Now, apparently Eleanor, who was a scullery maid in the village, she had good days and not so good days. Shall we say very similar to John's mother, Julia? How old was Julia when she was knocked over by the car? 44.
Yeah.
Eleanor was laid to rest, 44. Eleanor Rigby, now here's the one that gets me. Eleanor Rigby died and was buried along with her name. Nobody came. Eleanor Rigby was the beloved wife of Thomas Woods. When she was laid to rest, still married to Thomas. What should her name be on the tombstone?
Eleanor Woods.
Exactly, but she went back to her maiden name. Died and was buried along with her name. True. All these lonely people, where do they all come from? Now, if you notice, John Mackenzie on the gravestone is the father of Rachel, the daughter of the above, Father Mackenzie. So within this area here, we've got the whole song. So it's a bit of a strange one, this, isn't it? Because, you know, it would be, what's the odds on finding a Mackenzie next door to a Rigby? Because there is a few Rigbys. The Rigby family are one of the oldest names in the village. So we're now in this situation where, according to Paul, he reckons he might have seen the name on the gravestone, but it's not his take on the story. His take is Eleanor Bron, and Rigby's on the wall of a building. But there's more to this story, you see. So come this way. Of the Rose Green Festival, John Lennon is the leader of the band because he's 17 and these guys are only 15 and 16, you see, so he's the boss. And he says, when we finish playing over there, guys, take our equipment into the village hall because we're playing there in the evening time to all the adults. Okay? And while you're doing that, he said, I'm just going to have a beer. Right? So they brought all the equipment into the village hall, and there was two guys here. One guy had a guitar watching the show over there in the morning, and the other guy was a guy called Ivan Vaughan. Now Ivan Vaughan knew the Quarrymen very well, and he said to his school friend, oh, see, you've got your guitar with you, do you want to meet the Quarrymen, because I know them. So they came down here. So, Ivan Vaughan brings his school friend and took him through the door there. There was a big stage at the back there, big high stage, with velvet curtains and everything, you know. And the Quarrymen are putting their equipment on the stage. His friend and says, my friend can sing and play a guitar. And Eric Griffith said, I bet you can't play that, I bet you're no good. And he said, of course I can. So he sat on a seat, he tuned the guitar, and he played Bee-bop-a-lula, she's my baby. Now John Lennon's walked in with a drinky, and he goes over and he goes, you sound good, mate, what's your name? And the guy looked up and said, well, my name's Paul McCartney. He said, do you know any more songs? Yeah, I've got a girl's got a record machine, she's sometime when you know what I mean, 25 bucks. John said, in that building there, would you like to be in my band? And Paul said, well, I'll think about it. See, what you're looking at here is one of the most important musical sites you will ever see, because this is where John Lennon met Paul McCartney. As John recalled, that was the day I met Paul, that it started moving. So if you boil the story of the Beatles right down to the beginning, this is the beginning. It's you guys who changed the sound of our music, I think. So there was only George and his mum and dad in a big house. And Louise felt it was unfair that they'd waited so long for a big house, that a big family should be moving and using the house. So they did a house swap, and George come to live here, 174 Mackett's Lane. Now George basically had his 21st birthday in London, but he came back for a family party, right? Now, you know, being a Beatle, you might get some cards and presents. So, this arrived. So at the doorway there, it wasn't long after this photograph was taken that George decided to move his mum and dad from this house and bought a nice house for them in a place called Appleton in Warrington. So basically what we're talking about is a young man who died young as well, because he never even reached the age of 59, George. He'd been suffering cancer for a while, and unfortunately the cancer got him, you know, and he passed over in 2001.
So I thought I'd just end the vlog out here since we're not doing anything else today. But I had a great day in Liverpool, and tomorrow we're gonna head back to London because the next following day we're gonna go see Shakespeare's Birthplace, which is in Stratford. So stay tuned for that vlog. But that wraps up today's vlog, and thank you so much for watching.